So, Martin, there was a reshuffle this week. It was big political news.
I mean, it's all quite boring, isn't it? It's basically the same government. We're just, switching some of the seats around. Someone goes to the foreign ministry, someone goes from there to somewhere else. It's sort of like transfer day, I guess, for football nerds, but for Westminster people. I mean, I don't want to play down your segment, James. I'm sure it's very entertaining and you've found a unique angle on it, but Jesus Christ.
Oh, Martin, we've got lots of listeners in Westminster. We need to pretend to be interested in, what's this politician saying? What does that mean for everything else? That sort of interpersonal drama. We should theoretically care about that.
I think they've got Rory Stewart for that and Alistair Campbell. I don't think we need to step on their toes.
Okay, that's fair enough, Martin, because I actually want to talk to you about something related to the reshuffle. Because this week, as fractious as it's been for the new government, I think there could be a really big opportunity here for Steve Reed, who just took over Angela Rayner's brief at the Department of Housing, Community and Local Government, MHCLG, the worst named department. I think there's a big opportunity for him to reverse Angela Rayner's worst mistake.
What's he going to do? Offer her tax advice?
Not quite, Martin. So to explain what this is about, we actually need to start by talking about a sewage treatment plant in Cambridge. But I promise listeners, this will come back to some reshuffle chat.
Oh, you take us to all the most glamorous locations, James.
Yeah, so Martin, Cambridge, it's a very important city. It's home to one of our greatest universities, perhaps after only maybe Nottingham Trent or something like that. If you want to get the British economy growing, then Cambridge is pretty much at the centre of doing this. It's close to London, it's full of smart, highly skilled people, some big tech companies, it's on the new East-West rail line, it's going to connect directly to Oxford in the next few years, and, people have said for a long time now, Cambridge is a place which could quite easily expand. We could grow the city and basically build, I guess, something akin to our own Silicon Valley around the area, the Silicon Fen, as it's called. And so we need to grow Cambridge and make it more important.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of like a miniature Bedford, right, is my understanding. So it's not quite as successful as our city, but they do their best. They're up and coming. Maybe they'll get a theme park one day themselves. It's nice to see small rural places in the regions starting to develop a bit.
Absolutely, Martin. But there is a problem if we want to grow Cambridge to be this big, successful place, and that is sewage. Because if you're going to develop an area and increase the population, then more waste is going to be generated, and all that waste needs to be processed somewhere.
I feel like we're giving ammunition to all the people that say we talk shit on this podcast, James.
Absolutely, but I do think this is important because Cambridge has been basically hitting its sewage limit. In fact, because sewage capacity constraints are so tight in the city, Anglian Water, who manage the wastewater in the city, they've been, and this will infuriate everyone listening, 100% of people listening, they've been actively opposing new developments in the city because of sewage worries. Like, there was a big redevelopment proposed of Cambridge Science Park, and Anglian Water said, oh no, don't do that because our sewage system won't be able to cope.
I mean, this is like we're living in the Victorian era, isn't it? It's like, we want to build some houses, but unfortunately we're going to have to pump all the shit into the river. Like, what? How is that a thing in 2025 that you can't build, of all things, a science park because you haven't figured out how to deal with human waste?
Well, this is the thing. So they have been sort of trying to figure out how to do it.
Let's put a bigger pipe in, for fuck's sakes.
Well, wait and see, Martin. So back in 2018, they first made plans for a new sewage treatment plant just outside of Cambridge. And the idea was this would serve a larger population, it would have more capacity than it does now. It would be out of town. It would be on greenbelt land in the countryside. But this would be good because the existing sewage works is in a part of the town's sort of urban core. And apparently it's quite stinky to live near. I can't say I've been round close to there myself, so I can't confirm this. But I genuinely have seen a map with like a dotted line around it that basically says it's stinky beyond this point, radiating out from the sewage works. So they want to build this new sewage works, and it ticks all of your 21st century boxes. It would be operationally net zero. It would be energy neutral. It's something to do with biogas. They can generate energy as well as use energy. So over the course of a year, it'd be neutral. And they were even going to landscape it nicely to support wildlife. I mean, if you look at the image of this plan, and I put one on my Substack today if anyone wants to go and have a look at that, you actually look at it and think, that's quite an attractive sewage works.
Or, James, they could just all move to Bedford, which does not smell, last time I checked, and is not overflowing with human excrement.
That's on the sign, I think, isn't it?
I feel like we're not going to get the Cambridge Tourist Board sponsoring this podcast anytime soon.
Okay, Martin, so this plan gets even better, right? So they don't just want to build a new sewage works. I mentioned the existing sewage works. It's basically, it's not quite in the middle of town, but it's like connected to the broader urban area of Cambridge. So you build the new sewage works and you close the old one, and suddenly there's a massive new brownfield site right there in Cambridge.
There certainly is if they can't fix the sewage soon. Tell me more about this brownfield, James.
Don't accuse us of Oxford bias, because I went to a state school and went to a polytechnic university, so this is just Martin being very rude about a very nice place. No. So if they built on this site of the old sewage works, they could build a whole sort of basically new district of the town there. It would be 10 minutes bike ride from Cambridge city centre. It'd be right next to Cambridge North railway station, which is a brand new train station that was opened in 2017, so it'd be really well connected. And the council came up with an entire plan for this district. They spent ages on it. It was going to be called Hartree. I think it's named after some sort of physicist who did something complicated involving electrons. I don't understand. But basically, you could have put 8,500 homes in the place where this existing sewage works was. About 90% of that would be flats. You could have, I think, 2 schools. There was going to be leisure facilities, health facilities, all the stuff you sort of need for a functioning town. And even better, my favourite thing about this plan for Hartree was that the architect who sort of master planned it, he said that he could make the whole thing basically car free because it's a city location, which is good for all sorts of reasons. But the thing I like is he claimed in one article I read about this that Hartree wouldn't just be a 15-minute city, Martin. It would be a 5-minute city.
That's just trolling the conspiracy theorists at this point. It's like having seen the reputation of 15-minute cities. Yeah, let's just triple down on this. But no, it sounds fantastic. I guess if people can get over the constant stench in the air, it'll be a reasonably attractive place to live. Ticks a lot of boxes. They need lots of housing there. So this is the kind of development that's definitely going ahead, right?
Well, just to confirm, Martin, I think the stench comes from the sewage works, which will have closed down. It's not the people of Cambridge who stink themselves, however much you may think.
The sewage has to come from somewhere, James. I mean, where there's smoke, there's fire.
Well, in any case, so is this happening? It's a funny story. So the development, they've spent 7 years now basically chugging through the planning system. So 2021, the government recognised how important this is strategically, so declared it a nationally significant project, and that took the planning powers away from the council. I think something we're very broadly supportive of on this podcast in a sort of generalised form. And they gave the powers to Westminster to finally decide whether to go ahead with it or not. They went and secured £277 million worth of investment cash from the government's housing infrastructure fund to help pay for the development, which I think was going to cost about 400 million quid overall. And then in 2025, earlier this year, last April, because this whole thing started as a sewage works, it actually fell to the Environment Secretary to finally approve building this whole thing, which he did in April this year, granting a development consent order, a DCO.
Fantastic. So essentially they've checked all the boxes, they've got all of the ducks in a row, and this should be going ahead, right?
And this is where we get back to the reshuffle and Angela Rayner, because only about 3 weeks ago, in her now former department, MHCLG, it made a pretty shocking announcement. They said that the 277 million quid, which looked like it had all been confirmed, was actually being pulled from the project because it was no longer considered value for money.
What the hell?
Yeah, so basically this decision caused the whole project to then collapse, and as a result, Cambridge Council and Anglian Water, they've issued a joint statement saying that the project will, quote, no longer be able to be delivered. So it looked like that Cambridge was basically screwed. But then, just the other day, as we saw, Angela Rayner resigned.
So, I mean, I'm confused on multiple levels, James. First of all, how Angela Rayner decided to pull this in the first place, but then now she's resigned. I guess, is that an opportunity for the decision to be reversed for whatever reason it was made?
Well, it might not change anything, Martin, but I think there's something notable about this reshuffle, right? So I can't help but wonder if Steve Reed, the new minister who's taken on MHCLG and took over Angela Rayner's portfolio, maybe he might want to revisit the decision and possibly reverse it and put up the cash after all. And why is this, you may ask, Martin? Well, it's because you remember how in April this year, the Environment Secretary previously approved the project. Well, the Environment Secretary at the time was some bloke called Steve Reed.
Amazing. So it all comes back to in a full circle. And I guess what some YIMBY activists were the people that dug into Angela Rayner's tax affairs, perhaps? Is that
That
how we ended up at this reshuffle?
I think that's a conspiracy we can start on this show, Martin, because it really does feel like fate, doesn't it? It feels like now Steve Reed can reinforce the decision that Steve Reed made not so long ago. Because as far as I can tell, and I want to stress with this, I am definitely not a lawyer. Do not take legal advice from me here. But I don't think there are any legal barriers to reversing the decision, even though it sounds like the decision had already been made, because the planning permission granted back in April by Steve Reed, that remains valid for a few more years. So I presume if the cash can be found, if MHCLG will say, here's your 277 million quid, then suddenly we could start this thing getting built and start the new sewage works and build this new district of Cambridge.
Okay, but presumably there was a reason why Angela Rayner canned this in the first place suddenly. So is there not a risk that the same thing could happen with Steve Reed? Are they going to get to him as well?
Well, I'd love to say that the story ends here, that, Steve Reed can do the right thing and it's a piece of cake. He just has to sign a piece of paper and problem solved. But I do think it is more complicated because I'm a careful, nuanced guy. I've got to say that. So basically, the reason the decision appears to have been made, and this is slightly more speculative on my part because we don't know the exact reasons it was made. People have tried to FOI the business case for the sewage works over the years, and they've been denied. The last time I think it was 2023 when some people tried to get hold of it. But basically, whenever the government makes a decision like this, there's a value for money calculation. And the argument appears to have been MHCLG has decided it's not value for money anymore because everything's got more expensive. So the project's going to cost more money. Exactly how much more money, we don't know. But at least they put out a statement saying materials and labour have got more expensive, blah, 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 supply chain drama, all the usual stuff. And what makes this more complicated, and maybe not entirely Angela Rayner's fault, maybe I'm being a bit unfair or a bit trying to, shock jock my way to get people to listen here, because I think it's ultimately the Treasury that holds the purse strings on the Housing Infrastructure Fund. So it could be their sort of calculation that decides whether it's something counts as value for money or not.
Talking about value for money now, James, I have a horrible feeling that the phrase treasury brain is about to come up.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is me again. I'm mostly speculating here, but I dare say this is some reasonably well-informed speculation because it does seem to be Treasury brain, the idea that someone in the Treasury is only making decisions by looking at the spreadsheet and the numbers. The Treasury loves saying no to stuff because they're incentivized to only look for reasons to save money rather than the sort of bigger picture stuff like why spending money might actually work out better in the long run. And my assumption here is that because of the cost of the building the new sewage works has increased, someone plugged the new numbers into the equation and basically computer said no. And I just think that this is crazy. I mean, the Green Book, which is the Treasury document which sort of sets out how value for money is calculated, there was a review of it a few years ago where it basically said it needs to take more strategic stuff into account, and that could be underweighted relative to sort of bean counting. And like I said at the beginning of this segment, this is a really important strategic place. Cambridge is a critical place if we want to get the economy growing. If we want Cambridge to grow, we need more homes, we need more workplaces, we need more sewage treatment. And so even if this does get quite expensive in terms of what it would cost to build a sewage works, if you think about the potential for what Cambridge could do for Britain, we really do need to build this. So I wonder if the value for money calculation has gone completely askew here. And the last thing I'll say on this is the good news is I think theoretically, if the politicians decide that this is important, as per my argument, I think they can override the Green Book. Basically, the problem at the moment is because you're going against what the computer says, you seem like you're going out on a limb. You have to take a bit of a political risk. But, now Steve Reed's in place, and given that he's aware of the importance of this scheme, previously as Environment Secretary, he was saying, build it on the green belt. Therefore, he must have thought, this is actually pretty important, given how politically fraught that would be. Then maybe he'll take the political risk and finally get this sewage works built.
Yeah, and maybe one day Cambridge will catch up with Bedford. Who knows? But I think, James, you've not entirely convinced me that reshuffles matter. It might matter. I guess we'll find out.